The slap echoed across the garden like a gunshot. For one impossible second, every person standing beneath the white stone arches of the DeLuca estate stopped breathing. The guards froze with their hands beneath their jackets. The gardeners lowered their eyes. A black car waiting beside the fountain continued to idle, its engine humming beneath the sudden silence. Hannah Miller stood in the center of the garden with her palm burning and her heart pounding so violently that she could hear it in her ears. The tall man in front of her slowly turned his face. He wore a black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Dark ink disappeared beneath the fabric. His expression was not angry. That terrified her more. His eyes were calm, cold, and almost colorless. They were the eyes of a man who did not need to raise his voice because the entire world had already learned to fear his silence. A guard stepped forward. Hannah knew that she had made a terrible mistake. She had seen the man grab 6-year-old Leo by the shoulders near the garden wall. The little boy had looked frightened. His small body had gone rigid beneath the hands of a stranger Hannah had never seen before. She had not stopped to think. She had run across the grass, pulled Leo away, and struck the man across the face. Now she stood between them with one arm wrapped protectively around the child. The stranger touched his cheek. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was quiet. Hannah swallowed. "I am his nanny." The guards exchanged looks. The man stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked down at Leo. The boy was clutching the side of Hannah's blue dress. His dark hair fell over his forehead. His face was pale. He had not spoken a word since Hannah arrived at the estate 3 weeks earlier. According to the staff, he had not spoken in almost a year. The man lowered himself slightly. "Leo, come here." The boy pressed closer to Hannah. Something changed in the man. It was barely visible. But Hannah saw it. Pain moved through his eyes before coldness covered it again. The head of security approached Hannah carefully. "Miss Miller," he said, "step away from the child." Hannah tightened her arm around Leo. Not until someone explains who this man is and why he was handling Leo like that. The silence deepened. The tall man straightened. "My name is Roman DeLuca." The name struck Hannah harder than any threat could have. Roman DeLuca, the owner of the estate, the father of the child she was protecting, the man whose businesses controlled half the ports along the East Coast, the man newspapers called a private investor because no reporter was brave enough to print the truth, the Mafia boss feared by politicians, criminals, and men who carried weapons for a living. Hannah looked at her burning palm. Then she looked at the faint red mark forming across his cheek. She had slapped Roman DeLuca in front of his entire security team. The guard beside her shifted his hand beneath his jacket. Hannah lifted her chin. "I did not recognize you." Roman stared at her. "That much is obvious. You were hurting him. I was stopping him from climbing the wall. You grabbed him. He was about to fall." Hannah looked down at Leo. The boy was still trembling. She turned back to Roman. "Then you should have spoken to him gently." A gardener made a quiet sound and immediately pretended to cough. Roman moved one step closer. Hannah wanted to retreat, but she forced herself to remain still. "You believe you can tell me how to speak to my son. Someone needs to." The guards stared at her as though they had just watched a woman step into the path of an approaching train. Roman looked down at Leo again. The child would not meet his eyes. Something raw flickered across the face of the Mafia boss. He opened his mouth. Before he could speak, Leo whispered one word. "Mom." The sound was so soft that Hannah almost believed she had imagined it. Roman did not move. Neither did the guards. Leo looked up at Hannah with frightened brown eyes. "Mom," he said again. Hannah felt the small fingers tighten around her dress. Roman stared at his son as though the child had risen from the dead. Leo had spoken. For the first time in almost a year, the boy had spoken, and the first word he chose was not father. It was mom. Hannah knelt quickly. Leo, she said gently. I am Hannah. The boy wrapped both arms around her neck. Mom. Roman turned away. His shoulders remained straight, but his hands closed into fists at his sides. Hannah held Leo while the garden remained trapped in silence. She did not know then that the slap had changed everything. She did not know that someone was watching from the second-floor window. A woman dressed in ivory stood behind the glass, observing the child in Hannah's arms. Vittoria De Luca smiled without warmth. Then she stepped back into the shadows. Hannah had accepted the temporary position because she needed a place where nobody knew her name. 2 months earlier, she had worked at an elite childcare agency in Manhattan. She had been one of their best nannies until a wealthy client accused her of stealing a bracelet. The bracelet was later found inside the pocket of the client's teenage daughter. The family offered Hannah money in exchange for silence. Hannah refused. The agency dismissed her anyway. Rich families did not enjoy being embarrassed, and the agency preferred protecting its clients to protecting its employees. The position at the De Luca estate had appeared a week later. The salary was almost impossible to believe. The contract lasted 3 months. The rules were simple. Do not photograph the property. Do not ask questions about the family. Do not enter the West Wing. Do not discuss Leo with anyone outside the estate. Hannah had expected a spoiled child surrounded by luxury. Instead, she found a lonely little boy living in a mansion filled with armed men. Leo slept in a bedroom larger than her old apartment. Shelves covered every wall. Expensive toys remained untouched inside. Glass cabinets. Tutors arrived each morning, spoke to him for hours, and left without hearing his voice. His meals were carried on silver trays. His clothes were chosen by housekeepers. His security team followed him from room to room. Yet nobody held him when he woke from nightmares. Nobody sat beside him on the floor. Nobody noticed that he arranged his toy animals in protective circles around a small wooden rabbit. Hannah noticed. On her second night at the estate, she found Leo sitting inside his closet with his hands over his ears. She did not ask him to come out. She sat on the floor outside the closet and began reading a story about a lonely bear who was afraid of thunder. After 20 minutes, Leo moved closer. After 40 minutes, he placed the wooden rabbit beside her foot. By the end of the week, he allowed her to hold his hand. Roman was rarely home. When he did return, black vehicles filled the courtyard and armed guards moved through the halls. Leo always became silent and stiff. Roman would stand in the doorway of the playroom, study his son for a moment, then ask the tutors for a written report. He never sat down. He never touched the toys. He never entered the small world Leo had built for himself. Hannah had believed Roman was indifferent. The garden revealed something more complicated. After Leo called her mom, Roman ordered everyone to leave, only Hannah, Leo, and Roman remained beside the fountain. The child kept his arms around Hannah. Roman stood several feet away. Tell him to come to me, Roman said. Hannah looked at Leo. Do you want to go to your father? The boy shook his head. Roman's jaw tightened. Hannah rose slowly while holding Leo against her chest. He is frightened. Of me, Hannah hesitated. Yes. Roman looked toward the wall where he had caught Leo climbing. He should be frightened of the men outside this estate. He should never be frightened of the man inside it. Roman looked at her sharply. You know nothing about what is inside this house. Then help me understand. His expression became colder. You are an employee. I am the person your son trusts enough to speak to. The words landed between them. Roman walked closer until Hannah had to lift her face to meet his eyes. He was not simply tall. He carried an oppressive stillness that made the space around him feel smaller. You struck me, Roman said. I thought you were hurting him. My guards could have killed you before you reached me. Then they are not very good guards. The corner of his mouth almost moved. It was not a smile. It was something more dangerous. Fascination. Roman turned toward the men waiting beneath the arches. Matteo, the head of security, stepped forward. Yes, sir. Dismiss the 2 guards assigned to the north garden. The men looked stunned. Hannah stared at Roman. They did nothing wrong. Roman did not look at her. A woman crossed 40 feet of open ground, reached my son, and struck me before either man reacted. His gaze moved to the guards. They failed. The men lowered their heads. Roman looked at Hannah again. You now have complete authority over Leo's daily care. She blinked. I already manage his schedule. No. You followed the schedule created by other people. That ends today. Roman moved closer. The tutors, staff, doctors, and guards will follow your instructions concerning my son. If anyone refuses, tell Matteo. Hannah studied him. Why? Because Leo spoke. He called me Mom. Roman's face hardened. Do not remind me. Hannah felt Leo bury his face against her shoulder. She lowered her voice. He did not say it to hurt you. Children do not need intention to cause damage. The bitterness in his voice surprised her. Roman turned away. Tomorrow morning, you will give me a full assessment of what Leo needs. He needs his father. Roman stopped. Hannah felt the danger in the silence. He did not turn around. Be careful. Miss Miller, you gave me authority over his care. You are part of his care. Roman finally looked back at her. The sunlight caught the red mark on his cheek. For one breath, neither of them moved. Then he said something that would remain in Hannah's memory long after the garden became empty. You may be the first person in this house who does not understand what it means to be afraid of me. Hannah held his gaze. I understand. I simply care about him more than I fear you. That night, Roman stood alone inside his private office and replayed the sound of his son's voice. Mom. The word entered the darkest parts of him. He poured whiskey into a glass but did not drink it. On the desk stood a framed photograph of a woman with dark hair and a quiet smile. Elena, his wife. The woman who had once filled the estate with music, the woman who had died inside a burning car while Roman was negotiating a peace agreement across the city. Leo had been in the back seat. The driver had pulled him free. Elena had not survived. After the attack, Leo stopped speaking. Roman buried his wife 3 days later. He buried his grief the next morning. He ordered new walls built around the estate. He doubled security. He replaced Leo's caregivers with experts. He told himself that affection made people vulnerable. Elena had loved openly, and someone had used that love to destroy her. Roman would never make the same mistake. Then Hannah Miller arrived. She had walked into his house with inexpensive shoes, a worn suitcase, and no fear of disagreeing with powerful people. She did not flatter him. She did not lower her eyes. She had struck him because she believed his son needed protection. Roman touched the fading mark on his cheek. A quiet knock came from the door. Vittoria entered without waiting. Roman's aunt had raised him after his father was killed. She wore an ivory dress and a strand of pearls that had belonged to his grandmother. She had always appeared calm during disaster. She had arranged funerals, marriages, alliances, and disappearances with the same elegant control. I heard Leo spoke, Vittoria said. Roman watched her. The entire house heard. She approached the desk. The nanny may be creating an unhealthy attachment. Roman's eyes narrowed. You reached that conclusion after one word. A child who lost his mother can become confused. Hannah resembles Elena in certain ways. She does not resemble Elena. Not physically. Vittoria glanced at the photograph. She is warm, protective. Leo may mistake comfort for motherhood. Roman poured another measure of whiskey. Why does that concern you? Because women who enter this family through a child often become difficult to remove. Roman looked at her. Hannah is an employee. For now. Vittoria smiled gently. I am protecting you. Roman had heard those words from her since childhood. When his first dog disappeared after biting a visiting politician, Vittoria said she was protecting him. When his closest friend was sent away after questioning the family business, she said she was protecting him. When Roman married Elena against the wishes of the family council, Vittoria warned that love could become a weapon. Elena died 2 years later. Roman placed the glass on the desk. Do not interfere with the nanny. Vittoria studied him. Has she already become that important? She made Leo speak. That makes her valuable. Valuable things are often the most dangerous. Roman moved around the desk. Anyone who threatens Leo is dangerous. Anyone who helps him is protected. Vittoria held his gaze. Even from the family, especially from the family. For the first time, her smile disappeared. The next morning, Roman entered the breakfast room before 8. The staff nearly dropped the silver serving dishes. Roman never ate breakfast with Leo. Hannah sat beside the child near the windows. Morning light filled the room. She wore a soft green dress, and her brown hair was tied loosely at the back of her neck. Leo was arranging pieces of fruit into the shape of a rabbit. Hannah looked up when Roman entered. You are late. Every servant in the room became motionless. Roman glanced at the clock. It is 7:58. Breakfast begins at 7:45. This is my house, and that is your son. Roman sat across from them. The servants waited for instructions. Hannah nodded toward the empty plate. He can serve himself. A maid stared at her. Roman looked from the plate to Leo. The boy avoided his eyes. Roman reached for the fruit. Hannah stopped him. Not you. Leo. Roman stared at her hand, resting near his. She slowly removed it. Leo reached for a piece of toast. Hannah smiled. Good. Roman watched his son spread jam across the bread. The knife trembled in the small hand. Roman instinctively reached forward. Hannah shook her head. He can do it. The jam landed partly on the toast and partly on the table. Leo looked at Roman with immediate fear. Roman understood. His son expected anger. Roman forced his hand to remain still. Nothing happened, he said. Leo stared at him. Roman picked up his own knife and deliberately dropped a small amount of jam beside his plate. Hannah looked at him in surprise. Roman spread the jam with one finger. It appears I am worse. Leo continued staring. Then the smallest sound escaped him. It was not a word. It was almost a laugh. Roman went completely still. Hannah watched him struggle to hide the emotion in his face. She understood then that Roman was not incapable of loving his son. He was terrified of doing it. Over the following days, Hannah changed the rhythm of the estate. She dismissed 2 tutors who treated Leo like a medical problem. She moved his lessons from the formal schoolroom to the garden. She ordered the glass cabinets opened and placed every toy on the floor. She reduced the number of guards surrounding him. Roman objected. Hannah refused to change her decision. He needs protection. Roman said, he needs space. There are people who would use him to reach me. There are 6 armed men watching him draw a picture. 4 men. Hannah turned toward the guards. 2 of you may leave. The guards looked at Roman. He gave a nearly invisible nod. Hannah smiled sweetly. Now there are 2. Roman watched her sit beside Leo on the grass. He should have been angry. Instead, he found himself returning to the garden each afternoon. At first, he stood beneath the arches. Then he moved closer. One afternoon, Hannah handed him a piece of chalk. Roman looked at it as though it were a weapon from an unfamiliar country. What am I supposed to do with this draw? I do not draw. Leo placed a red piece of chalk near Roman's shoe. Hannah looked at him. Apparently, you do now. Roman lowered himself to the stone path. He drew a car. Leo studied it. Then the boy reached forward and added flames around the back wheels. Roman's body tightened. Hannah saw the sudden darkness in his face. Leo dropped the chalk. His breathing changed. Hannah moved closer. "You are safe." Leo. The boy stared at the picture. Roman reached for him. Leo pulled away. Pain entered Roman's eyes. Hannah took the chalk and drew a large blue wave over the flames. Then she added a small boat. "The fire is gone," she said. "The boat is taking everyone somewhere safe." Leo watched her. He slowly placed the wooden rabbit inside the chalk boat. Roman looked at the drawing. "What does he remember?" he asked. Hannah heard the fear beneath the question. "More than he can explain. He was asleep when the attack began." "Children, wake up." Roman turned toward her. The official report said he saw nothing. Official reports are written by adults. Roman stared at Leo. That evening, Hannah found a folded note beneath her pillow. "Leave the DeLuca house before the child speaks again." There was no signature. She carried the note to Roman's office. 2 guards stood outside the door. One of them opened it. Roman was seated behind his desk with Matteo and 3 men Hannah did not recognize. Photographs of shipping warehouses covered the table. The men stopped speaking when she entered. Roman looked at her face and immediately stood. "What happened?" Hannah placed the note on the desk. Roman read it once. The room became cold. "Where did you find this?" "On my bed." Matteo took the note with a gloved hand. "No one entered the East guest wing today," he said. "Someone did." Roman looked at the other men. "Leave." They obeyed without question. Matteo remained. Roman approached Hannah. "Did anyone touch you?" "No." "Did you see anyone unfamiliar?" "No." Roman looked at Matteo. "Lock the estate. Search every room. Nobody leaves." Hannah crossed her arms. "That will frighten Leo." "Someone entered your bedroom." "Someone wants me to leave." "That means they will try something else." Roman stepped closer. "You are moving to the room beside Leo." "I am not hiding." "You are not being asked." "I do not respond well to orders." "I have noticed." Their eyes locked. Matteo quietly left the office. Roman lowered his voice. "This is not a disagreement about breakfast. Someone entered your private room inside the most secure house in New York, which means your security is not as perfect as you believe." His jaw tightened. "You will sleep beside Leo." Hannah studied him. "Because you need to protect me, because Leo needs you alive." The answer hurt more than she expected. She looked away. "Of course." Roman saw the change in her expression. He wanted to correct himself. He did not know how. Hannah walked toward the door. "Miss Miller." She stopped. Roman searched for words he had not used in years. "Be careful." Hannah looked back. "You too." That night, Roman reviewed every security recording from the East Wing. At 2 in the morning, Matteo found a missing section. 7 minutes had been erased. Only 4 people possessed the authority to access the internal system. Roman, Matteo, Vittoria, and Roman's cousin, Marco De Luca. Marco had grown up beside Roman. He managed several legitimate businesses and represented the family at public events. He was charming, educated, and loved by the newspapers. He was also ambitious. Roman ordered Matteo to investigate both Marco and Vittoria without alerting either of them. At 3 in the morning, he walked to Leo's room. The door was open. Hannah was asleep in a chair beside the bed. A book rested across her lap. Leo slept beneath the blanket, with one hand wrapped around her fingers. Roman stood in the doorway. He had entered rooms after gunfire and found men waiting to kill him. Nothing had ever frightened him as much as the peaceful scene before him. He wanted it. The realization felt like a blade entering beneath his ribs. He wanted Hannah in this house. He wanted to hear her footsteps in the hall. He wanted her stubborn voice challenging every rule he had created. He wanted his son to reach for her. He wanted to reach for her himself. Roman stepped closer. Hannah woke immediately. Her eyes opened and found him in the darkness. "What are you doing?" "Watching. That is disturbing." "I have been called worse." Leo shifted. Hannah lowered her voice. "Did you find who left the note?" "Not yet." "Then why are you here?" Roman looked at the hand his son had wrapped around hers. "I wanted to see if he was sleeping." "You could have asked." "I am not accustomed to asking permission inside my own house." "You should practice." Roman almost smiled. Hannah moved her hand carefully from beneath Leo's fingers and stood. She followed Roman into the hall. The door remained open behind them. Roman noticed that she had no shoes. Her hair fell over one shoulder. Without the controlled daylight between them, the attraction he had ignored became difficult to contain. Hannah felt it too. The hall seemed too narrow. Roman lifted one hand as though he intended to touch her face. He stopped before his fingers reached her skin. Hannah did not move. "Why did you stop?" she whispered. Roman's eyes darkened. "Because you are here for my son." That is not an answer. It is the only safe answer. Safe for whom? Roman lowered his hand. "For you?" He turned and walked away before control became impossible. The following week, Roman attended breakfast every morning. He began reading to Leo at night. The first time he entered the bedroom, holding a book. Leo looked at Hannah for guidance. Hannah nodded. Roman sat on the edge of the bed. His voice was stiff at first. The story was about a knight who lived behind a wall because he believed everyone outside wanted to steal his kingdom. Halfway through the story, Leo moved closer. Roman continued reading. When the chapter ended, Leo touched the tattoo on Roman's wrist. Roman looked at Hannah. She smiled. "Do not stop now." Roman opened the book again. Later. As Hannah walked him toward the door, Roman spoke quietly. "The knight is a fool. Why walls do not protect a kingdom? Loyal people do." Hannah looked into his eyes. "Loyal people need to know they are loved." Roman glanced back at Leo. "I protected Elena. You protected her body. Did you protect her heart?" Roman's face hardened. "You are crossing a line." Hannah held his gaze. "You invited me across it when you gave me authority over your son." Roman stepped closer. "Do not speak about my wife as though you knew her. I know what loneliness looks like." Something dangerous moved through his expression. "You believe she was lonely. I believe everyone in this house is lonely, including me, especially you." Roman stood close enough that Hannah could feel the heat of him. She should have been frightened. Instead, she wondered what would happen if she placed her hand against his chest. Roman lowered his face. Hannah stopped breathing. A voice came from the doorway. "How touching." Vittoria stood at the end of the hall. Roman stepped away from Hannah. Vittoria approached with an elegant smile. "I hope I am not interrupting." "You are," Roman said. Her eyes moved to Hannah. "The family council is gathering tomorrow evening. Roman will be expected to attend." Hannah looked at Roman. "What is the council?" "A group of relatives who believe my life belongs to them." Vittoria smiled. "A group responsible for maintaining the stability of the family." Her gaze returned to Hannah. "You should bring Leo." "No." Roman said. Vittoria ignored him. "The family has not seen him since Elena died. It would reassure everyone that he is recovering. He is not a symbol for your council. He is the heir." Hannah saw Leo standing silently inside the bedroom. He had heard the word, Elena. His face had changed. Hannah knelt. "Leo, come with me." The boy walked into her arms. Vittoria watched them. "He has become very attached." Hannah looked up. "He needs consistency. Temporary employees cannot provide consistency." Roman's voice became sharp. "Enough." Vittoria turned to him. "You cannot keep the boy hidden forever." "I can do anything I decide." Vittoria smiled again. That is what your father believed. She walked away. Hannah rose with Leo. Your aunt does not like me. My aunt does not like anything she cannot control. Does she control you? Roman looked toward the empty hall. Not anymore. The family council took place inside the grand ballroom. Crystal lights illuminated a table long enough to seat 30 people. Portraits of dead DeLuca, leaders watched from the walls. Hannah had no intention of attending. Roman changed that decision when he discovered a second threat beneath the windshield of the car assigned to her. This time, the message contained a photograph of Leo in the garden. Roman ordered Hannah and Leo to remain inside the ballroom during the meeting. You want to place the child beside every person who may be threatening him, Hannah asked. I want to see who reacts to his presence. So, we are bait. You are protected. That is not the same thing. Roman fastened the cuff of his black suit. His eyes moved over the dark blue dress Hannah wore. She had chosen something simple, but the fabric followed the soft curves of her body. Roman stared for 1 second too long. Hannah noticed. Do you approve? No. Her eyebrows lifted. Roman moved closer. The dress will attract attention. That is generally why people wear formal clothing. The men downstairs will look at you. Hannah almost smiled. Are you jealous? Roman's expression remained controlled. Jealousy suggests uncertainty. Then what are you feeling, possession? The word entered the space between them. Hannah's breath caught. Roman lifted one hand and adjusted the small silver necklace at her throat. His fingers brushed her skin. You are under my protection tonight. Only tonight. His eyes met hers. Do not ask questions unless you are prepared for the answer. Before Hannah could respond, Leo entered wearing a small black suit. He held the wooden rabbit against his chest. Roman looked at him and softened almost invisibly. Hannah saw it. She placed one hand in Leo's and walked toward the ballroom. Roman followed beside them. The conversation stopped when they entered. Relatives, business partners, and advisors turned toward Hannah. Some looked curious. Others looked offended. Vittoria sat at the head of the table. Marco DeLuca stood beside her. He was handsome, with warm brown eyes and an effortless smile. He approached Hannah first. You must be the famous Nanny. Hannah offered a polite nod. I did not realize I was famous. You struck Roman and survived. That makes you legendary. Roman moved between them. Marco smiled. There he is. The protective father. The words sounded harmless. Roman heard the mockery beneath them. Marco knelt in front of Leo. Hello, little wolf. Leo stepped behind Hannah. Marco noticed. His smile changed for a fraction of a second. Hannah saw it. So did Roman. The council began. Arguments about shipping contracts, territory, and alliances filled the room. Hannah understood very little, but she understood the fear behind the polite language. Several members wanted Roman to marry again. A new marriage would create an alliance and provide another heir. Vittoria suggested Isabella Conti, the daughter of a powerful family from Boston. Roman refused. The family needs stability. Vittoria said, My son provides stability. Your son has not spoken in a year? Leo looked down. Hannah felt anger rise inside her. He spoke last week, she said. The room became silent. Vittoria looked at her. This is a family discussion. You discussed him as though he were not sitting here. Roman leaned back in his chair. Let her speak. Vittoria's eyes hardened. Hannah placed one hand on Leo's shoulder. He is not damaged. He is frightened. There is a difference. Marco watched Leo. What did he say? Hannah hesitated. Roman answered. He called her Mom. The reaction moved around the table. Shock, curiosity, disapproval. Vittoria looked at Hannah with open calculation. How convenient. Roman's hand closed around the arm of his chair. Explain. A temporary nanny arrives. Within weeks, the silent heir calls her mother. Now she attends family meetings in a dress chosen to attract attention. Hannah's face warmed. Roman rose. The entire room went silent. "You will apologize," he said. Victoria stared at him. "To an employee, to the woman caring for my son. She is using the child to enter this family." Roman placed both hands on the table. "Anyone who humiliates Hannah will answer directly to me." Nobody moved. The threat did not require explanation. Victoria turned pale with anger. Marco watched Roman with new interest. Hannah looked at the man standing beside her. He had not touched her. He had not called her anything more than an employee. Yet he had challenged his entire family for her. The protection felt dangerous. It also felt intoxicating. The lights went out. A shot shattered the windows. Roman moved before anyone else. He pulled Hannah and Leo to the floor and covered them with his body. Guards entered through every door. Gunfire erupted outside the ballroom. Glass fell across the table. Roman pressed Hannah beneath him. "Stay down." Leo was trapped safely between them. Hannah felt Roman's heart beating against her back. Another shot struck the wall. Roman drew a weapon from beneath his jacket and fired toward the broken window. A man outside fell behind the hedge. The guards rushed into the garden. The attack lasted less than 1 minute. When the lights returned, Roman remained over Hannah. A thin line of blood marked his temple where glass had cut him. Hannah touched the injury. "You are bleeding." "It is nothing." Leo reached for Roman. This time, he did not pull away. Roman gathered his son into one arm while keeping the other around Hannah. Cameras from a news vehicle captured the moment through the open gates. By morning, the photograph appeared across every major website. The feared Roman DeLuca kneeling in broken glass, his son clinging to his chest. His body curved protectively around the curvy woman in the blue dress. The headlines called Hannah his mysterious companion. Some called her his secret lover. One newspaper called her the new mother of the DeLuca heir. Roman ordered the estate closed. Hannah wanted to leave. He refused. "You are a target now," he said. "I became a target inside your house. Leaving will not make you safer. Staying may not either." Roman stood in front of the door to her room. "You are not leaving. You cannot imprison me. Watch me." Hannah stared at him. "This is the man everyone fears." "Yes. I thought there was more to you." "There is." "Then prove it." Roman's expression changed. Hannah stepped closer. "Ask me to stay. Do not order me." Roman looked at her as though she had demanded something impossible. He had commanded armies of men. He had negotiated with killers. He had never learned how to ask someone not to abandon him. Hannah waited. Roman lowered his voice. "Stay." The word was quiet and rough. "Why?" His eyes held hers. "Because Leo needs you." Hannah's face fell. Roman reached for her before she could turn away. His hand closed gently around her wrist. "And because I cannot think when I imagine someone taking you from this house." Hannah stopped breathing. Roman moved closer. "I know where you are every hour. I recognize your footsteps. I know which tea you drink and which books you read to Leo when he cannot sleep. I know that you open the curtains before sunrise and that you pretend not to be frightened when you receive threats." His fingers loosened around her wrist but did not release her. "I know that when you walk into a room, my son becomes less afraid." Roman's gaze lowered to her mouth. "So do I." Hannah felt the walls around him cracking. Then the door behind them opened. Leo stood in the hallway. He looked from Hannah to Roman. "Stay," he whispered. Hannah knelt and pulled him into her arms. Roman watched them. The answer was no longer a choice. She stayed. The investigation revealed that the ballroom attackers had entered through a delivery gate using family access codes. Marco claimed the codes had been stolen. Victoria blamed Matteo. Roman trusted neither explanation. Hannah began working with Leo through drawings. She placed sheets of paper across the floor and asked him to draw anything he remembered from the night his mother died. At first, Leo drew only flames, then cars, then a woman wearing pearls. Hannah stared at the drawing. The woman stood beside Elena's car. A small shape appeared in her hand. It looked like a key. Hannah showed the picture to Roman. His face became unreadable. "Victoria wears pearls," she said. "Many women wear pearls." Leo drew the same necklace your aunt wore during the council meeting. Roman looked at the picture. His voice became cold. "Do not speak about this to anyone. You believe it could be her. I believe drawing conclusions before evidence gets people killed." Hannah stepped closer. "You are protecting her." Roman looked at her sharply. "I am protecting you. From the truth. From what the truth will do once it becomes visible." That night, Roman entered the private chapel where Elena had once prayed. He opened a hidden compartment beneath the altar. Inside lay a damaged mobile phone, recovered from the car. The investigators had declared it destroyed. Roman had kept it anyway. Matteo had recently found a specialist capable of recovering fragments from the device. One fragment contained an unfinished voice recording. Elena's frightened voice filled the chapel. "Roman," she said. "Victoria knows about the harbor agreement. She told Marco where Leo and I would be. I do not know who to trust." The recording ended. Roman closed his eyes. The woman who raised him had betrayed his wife. Marco had helped her. Roman wanted to destroy them immediately. Instead, he forced himself to wait. The family network was larger than two people. If he moved too early, the others would disappear. He needed a trap. 3 days later, police vehicles arrived at the estate. Hannah was teaching Leo near the fountain when officers entered the garden. Roman walked behind them. His face was cold. Matteo held a small black bag. Hannah stood. "What is happening?" Roman looked at Leo. "Take him inside." The boy grabbed Hannah's hand. Roman's gaze met hers. Now, something in his voice frightened her. She moved Leo toward the doors. An officer blocked her path. "Miss Miller, we need to ask you several questions." About what? Matteo opened the black bag. Inside were access cards, a burner phone, and several photographs of Leo. Hannah recognized the bag. It belonged to her. "Where did you find that?" "Your wardrobe," Roman said. The world seemed to tilt. "That is impossible." The burner phone contained messages to the men who attacked the council meeting. Hannah looked at Roman. "You know I did not send them." His face revealed nothing. The access card used at the delivery gate was found inside the bag. Someone planted it. Roman remained silent. Hannah felt Leo shaking beside her. "Tell them," she said. "Tell them you believe me." Vittoria and Marco appeared beneath the arches. Vittoria wore black. Her expression held perfect concern. "This is terrible," she said. Hannah looked at Roman. The man who had asked her to stay stood several feet away as though she were a stranger. "Roman," she whispered. He looked at Matteo. "Take Leo." Leo screamed. It was the first loud sound the child had made in almost a year. "No." Matteo reached for him. Leo clung to Hannah. "Mom." Hannah's heart broke. She held him tightly. "I am here." Roman crossed the garden. For one desperate second, Hannah believed he would protect her. Instead, he took Leo from her arms. The boy fought him. "Mom. Mom." Hannah stared at Roman through tears. "You promised?" Roman held his son against his chest. His voice remained cold. "Promises depend on truth." The officers placed Hannah in handcuffs. She did not resist. Roman watched them lead her through the garden. She turned once. The look in her eyes carried more pain than hatred. Roman felt something inside him tear apart. He could not show it. Vittoria was watching. Marco was watching. Every traitor inside the estate needed to believe that Hannah had been abandoned. The police vehicle was not real. The officers belonged to a private security unit controlled by Matteo. Hannah was taken to a safe house near the Hudson River. Roman planned to explain everything once the trap closed. He never received the chance. The vehicle was attacked before it reached the highway. A truck blocked the road. Armed men pulled the guards from the car. Hannah was dragged into another vehicle. The betrayal had happened faster than Roman expected. Matteo received the emergency signal. Roman heard the news while Leo was still fighting against him. The safe vehicle is gone. Matteo said, "We lost contact 5 minutes ago." Roman became perfectly still. Vittoria stood near the garden doors. Marco looked toward the gate. Roman handed Leo to Matteo. "Seal the estate." Vittoria stepped forward. "Where are you going?" Roman turned toward her. "To correct a mistake." For the first time in years, the control in his face disappeared. What remained was not grief. It was death. Hannah woke inside an abandoned church near the river. Her hands were tied to a wooden chair. Rain struck the broken stained glass windows. Marco stood near the altar. His charming smile was gone. Vittoria entered through a side door. Hannah stared at her. "You killed Elena." Vittoria removed her gloves. Elena killed herself the moment she convinced Roman that love mattered more than family. "Leo saw you." He saw fragments. Children remember more than adults understand. Vittoria looked toward Marco. That is why the boy remained silent. He knew speaking was dangerous. Hannah felt sick. The notes, the attacks, the photograph, all necessary. "You wanted me to leave." At first, Vittoria approached. Then Leo spoke. Hannah understood. "You are afraid he will tell Roman what he saw. I am afraid Roman will believe him." Marco checked his watch. "Roman will arrive soon." Hannah looked at him. "You wanted him to follow." Vittoria smiled. "Roman destroyed half of our alliances after Elena died. He became suspicious, isolated, and impossible to control. The council needs a leader capable of cooperation." Marco adjusted his jacket. "Roman will die while attempting to rescue the woman who arranged an attack against his family. Nobody will believe that. They will believe whatever survives." Hannah pulled against the rope. "What happens to Leo?" Vittoria looked toward the dark windows. "He will be raised properly. Without love, with discipline." Hannah stared at the woman. "Leo was never weak. You were simply afraid of what he remembered." A vehicle stopped outside. Marco drew his weapon. Vittoria stepped into the shadows. The church doors opened. Roman entered alone. Rain covered his black coat. Blood marked one sleeve. Hannah's heart stopped. Roman looked at her first. His eyes moved over the ropes, the bruise near her temple, and the armed man standing behind her. Something terrifying settled across his face. Marco lifted the weapon. "You came without guards." Roman removed his coat. "You threatened her. That was enough." Hannah looked at him. "You believed them." Roman's eyes met hers. "Never." The single word crossed the church. Hannah felt tears burn her eyes. Roman moved toward the altar. Marco aimed at his chest. "Stop." Roman stopped. Vittoria stepped forward. "You always were predictable when a woman became involved." Roman looked at the aunt who had raised him. "Elena trusted you. Elena weakened you. You murdered her. I preserved the family." Roman's voice lowered. "There will be no family after tonight." Marco smiled. "You are unarmed." Roman looked toward the balcony above them. "No." The lights shattered. Gunfire erupted from the upper windows. Matteo and Roman's guards entered through the side doors. Marco fired toward Roman. Roman moved behind a stone column. Hannah threw herself sideways with the chair. The bullet struck the wall behind her. Vittoria ran toward the rear exit. Roman crossed the distance to Hannah while shots echoed through the church. He cut the ropes with a knife hidden inside his sleeve. "Are you hurt? I am alive." Roman pulled her against him. For 1 second, the world disappeared. His hands moved across her face, shoulders, and arms, as though he needed proof that she was real. Hannah gripped his shirt. "You let them take me. I believed the vehicle was secure. You broke me in front of Leo." Roman closed his eyes. "I know." A shot struck the column. Roman covered Hannah with his body and returned fire. Marco disappeared behind the altar. Vittoria reached the rear door. It opened before she could escape. Matteo stood there, holding Leo. Roman stared at him. "I told you to keep him at the estate." He refused to stay. Leo looked at Vittoria. The woman became pale. The boy lifted one trembling hand and pointed toward her necklace. "Pearls," he whispered. Everyone became still. Leo stared at Vittoria. Mom was crying. Vittoria stepped backward. Leo continued. She took the car key. Hannah covered her mouth. Roman looked at his aunt. Leo's voice shook. She gave it to Marco. Marco appeared behind the altar and aimed at the child. Roman moved instantly. He fired once. Marco fell before he could pull the trigger. Vittoria screamed. Roman stepped between her and Leo. The gun remained in his hand. Vittoria stared at Marco's motionless body. "You killed your own blood." Roman's face held no emotion. "My blood is standing behind me." Vittoria looked at Leo. The child moved into Hannah's arms. Roman raised the weapon. Hannah spoke. "Do not." Roman looked at her. "She deserves to face what she did." Vittoria smiled weakly. "You believe the law can punish me?" Hannah held Leo. "No, but living long enough to watch Roman rebuild everything you tried to destroy will punish you." Roman stared at Hannah. Then he lowered the weapon. Matteo placed Vittoria in restraints. She looked at Roman as she was led away. "Love will ruin you." Roman looked at Hannah and Leo. "No," he said. "It ruined you." The church became quiet. Rain entered through the broken windows. Roman approached Hannah. Leo stood between them. Roman lowered himself in front of his son. "I should have listened to you," he said. Leo looked at the floor. Roman continued. "I should have held you when you were frightened. I should have asked what you remembered. I thought distance would keep you safe." The boy looked at him. Roman's voice broke. "I was wrong." Leo reached toward him. Roman gathered his son into his arms. Hannah watched the most feared man in New York hold his child and weep without hiding his face. Then Leo reached for her. Roman extended one arm. Hannah joined them. They remained together beneath the ruined stained glass window while dawn began to appear above the river. The weeks after the church changed the De Luca empire, Vittoria survived to face charges supported by recordings, financial documents, and testimony from several council members who chose loyalty over destruction. The criminal organization did not disappear. Roman did not become innocent. He was still dangerous. Men still feared his name, but he began cutting away the parts of the empire that had placed his family in permanent danger. He closed the underground clubs Vittoria had used for trafficking. He transferred the most violent shipping routes to legitimate businesses. He removed every council member who had supported Marco. The changes created enemies. Roman accepted that. He no longer believed power required loneliness. Hannah did not forgive him immediately. She remained at the estate for Leo. But she moved back into the guest room. Roman did not enter without permission. He attended breakfast. He read every night. He waited. One evening, Hannah found him sitting outside Leo's bedroom. The hallway was dark. Roman wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. "Why are you sleeping on the floor?" she asked. He had a nightmare. "You could sit inside." "He asked for you." Hannah entered the room. Leo was awake. She sat beside him until his breathing slowed. When she returned to the hall, Roman remained on the floor. Hannah sat beside him. Their shoulders almost touched. "You could have told me the truth before the garden," she said. "If my reaction had changed, Vittoria would have known." "You were convincing." Roman looked at his hands. "Hurting you was the hardest thing I have ever done. Harder than killing Marco." "Yes." Hannah studied his face. "That answer should frighten me." "It should." Roman turned toward her. "I do not know how to love carefully. I have never asked you to love carefully." His eyes searched hers. "What are you asking?" Hannah placed her hand over his. "To love honestly." Roman closed his fingers around hers. "I am obsessed with the sound of you moving through this house. I hate every door that stands between us. I want to know where you are, who speaks to you, and whether they make you smile. That is not very healthy." "I did not promise healthy." Hannah almost laughed. Roman continued, "I want you beside me when I wake. I want you beside Leo when he grows. I want every person who enters this house to know that touching you means facing me." Hannah looked at him. "Possession is not devotion." Roman lifted her hand to his chest. "Then tell me the difference." "Devotion means you protect what I choose, even when I do not choose you." Pain crossed his face. "I can do that." "Could you let me leave?" Roman became silent. Hannah waited. Finally, he answered, "I would have guards follow you." Roman. From a respectful distance, she shook her head. He tightened his hand around hers. "But I would open the gate." Hannah saw the truth in his expression. It cost him everything to say it. She leaned closer. "I am not leaving tonight." Roman touched her face. His thumb moved slowly across her cheek. "And tomorrow, ask me tomorrow." He kissed her. The kiss was not gentle at first. It carried weeks of fear, denial, jealousy, and restrained hunger. Roman pulled her closer, then forced himself to slow down. Hannah felt the control return to his hands. He kissed her as though she were something powerful enough to destroy him and precious enough to save him. When they separated, Roman rested his forehead against hers. Leo called from the bedroom. Mom Hannah closed her eyes. Roman smiled for the first time without hiding it. "We should answer him." They entered the room together. 1 year later, the De Luca estate no longer felt like a museum protected by armed men. Children from a local support center visited the gardens twice a month. The glass cabinets remained empty because every toy belonged on the floor. Leo attended school with other children. He still experienced nightmares. But he spoke about them. He spoke about Elena. He spoke about the fire. He spoke about the woman with pearls. Most importantly, he spoke without fear. Hannah created a foundation for children who had survived violence. Roman funded it, but she controlled every decision. They argued often. Roman still ordered too many guards. Hannah still dismissed half of them. He still hated when other men looked at her. She still reminded him that jealousy was not a security strategy. One bright morning, Hannah stood in the garden where she had first struck him. Leo played near the fountain. Roman approached from behind. Hannah turned. "You should announce yourself. You recognize me this time." "That depends." "Are you planning to grab Leo again?" Roman touched his cheek. "I still remember the slap." "You deserved it. I was saving him from falling." "You look suspicious." Roman stepped closer. "You enjoyed striking me." "Only a little." He placed one hand at her waist. The sun filled the garden. Guards remained at a respectful distance. Leo ran toward them, holding the wooden rabbit. Roman lowered himself beside his son. Leo opened a small velvet box. Inside was a ring. Hannah looked at Roman. "You involved a child in this. He is an excellent strategist." Leo smiled. Roman took the ring. He did not kneel. He had already knelt before Hannah in every way that mattered. He had lowered his walls. He had surrendered his secrets. He had trusted her with his son, his home, and the parts of his heart he once believed were dead. Roman held the ring between them. I cannot promise you a peaceful life. Hannah looked around the guarded estate. That would be difficult to believe. I cannot promise that I will stop being protective. Impossible. I cannot promise that I will become easy to live with. Leo shook his head seriously. No. Hannah laughed. Roman looked at her with quiet devotion. I can promise that you will never stand alone again. I can promise that Leo will know love is not weakness. I can promise that every decision I make will begin with the family we choose to become. Hannah felt tears fill her eyes. Roman continued, You entered my house as a temporary nanny. You struck me in front of my men. You taught my son to speak. You taught me to listen. He lifted the ring. Stay. Hannah remembered the first time he had spoken that word. Then, it had sounded like an order. He was struggling to turn into a request. Now, it sounded like a vow. She held out her hand. Yes. Roman placed the ring on her finger. Leo wrapped his arms around both of them. Mom, he said. Then he looked at Roman. Dad. Roman closed his eyes. The two words entered the garden together. Mom, Dad. A family created not by blood alone, but by courage, forgiveness, and the dangerous decision to love after loss. Roman lifted Leo into one arm and pulled Hannah against his side. Beyond the estate walls, enemies still whispered the DeLuca name. Men still feared Roman. They spoke about his power, his violence, and the empire that obeyed him. But inside the garden, the most important truth was much simpler. The woman who had once slapped the untouchable Mafia boss had become the only person who could place her hand against his chest and command the storm inside him to become still. And Roman DeLuca, feared by an entire city, obeyed her every time.